my dearest friend, my dearest friend, 6 weeks, 6 weeks, John Adams, 6 long weeks without hearing anything from you, when my mind has conjured up all manner of conceivable, horrible incidents that might have kept you from writing me, your wife, and your beloved children. I have imagined that you were kidnapped because of the role that you are playing to win independency from England, or that you fell and hit your head and are in a coma, moaning for me, your Abigail and Braintree plantation. Then my mind has conceived that you simply are not taking the time to write to us when I have sent to you every week my letters, 6 and 7 pages, telling you everything that has transpired at our home. I was despondent, and yesterday evening I put on my mother's dress and I did my hair. The children have seen how depressed I have been, what is the term that Shakespeare used for Hamlet and Romeo? Oh yes, melancholy. I have been so melancholy of late. 6 weeks of melancholy for the poor children. And so I put on this dress, and I did my hair, and I went out after supper to join the children on the porch. As the fireflies came out of the woods, you remember how lovely they sparkled, how magical. And I tried to push from my mind any thoughts of you not writing to me and your children. And I sat on the porch as we regaled to the wonderful stories of Patsy and her silliness. We all laughed. But suddenly, just yesterday evening, after 6 long weeks, I shan't keep from reminding you, John Quincy, whose hearing is incredible. John Quincy stood bolt upright and went to the column on the side of the porch and got his flintlock rifle. And all of us stood up, for he heard, yes, and I now heard, a rider coming. Could it be? Would it be? It was Tobias, your courier. And the horse was all lathered up. John Quincy put his flintlock back against the pillar and went forth to help Tobias. The horse was lathered, and John Quincy immediately went to take it to the stable to be curried and fed. But first, Tobias handed me the packet, and I gave that letter from you, John Adams. Shame on you for not writing to us for 6 weeks. And John Quincy took the letter and put it in his pocket, dear boy that he is, and took the horse to feed and be curried down from the lather of the ride, 300 miles from Braintree Plantation to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I took my letter, equally as disciplined, and put it in the pocket of my apron. And Patsy took Tobias to feed his supper, poor man, exhausted that he was. And I handed out the letters to the little ones, and they ran up the stairs to read what you had told them, and to see those words written, I love you, your Papa. I will not look that gift horse in the mouth. I will not complain that it has been 6 long weeks For in my pocket is a letter that you touched, that you wrote with your own hand, John Adams. I know that you are on a perilous mission, writing down ideas to give America's colonies freedom from Great Britain. I know that. I know that you belong to the great issue of independency. But you and I agreed that you and I would write without fail. You say in the letter which I read that we both ask one another the same questions over and over again, and that is true. Perhaps that is because we are not getting and receiving the answers to those questions that we both want. I know your two questions, for you are correct. They appear in every letter. You ask me, please invite my mother to spend the winter at Braintree. I have, John. I have repeatedly, and I will do so again. I would love to have your mother here with us, but she tires easily, and the noise and the rambunctious running about the house of the children bother her. I do not know if she will acquiesce and agree to come, but as I have told you in response to every letter where you have asked me to invite her for the winter months, I will ask again. And then, of course, there is the second thing that you ask of me repeatedly. You want those 2 wagons full of barrels of, how do you want me to phrase it? Salt pork for Peter's sake. You want those barrels sent soon to give to George Washington, to move yourself up in his estimation, for salt pork for Peter's sake is so hard to come by in the battles. I have 1 wagon load full. I do not put it in our sheds or barns for fear of combustion. But when the other wagon's barrels are full of that recipe which I know well, for salt pork for Peter's sake, as you wish me to phrase it, they will be on their way soon to Philadelphia. And I hope that your favor is curried with General Washington. And now to my 2 most repeated questions, or needs, or desires, or wants. I know I repeat them, but John, you must remember the ladies. Remember the ladies, the women who are out here in the colonies fighting, just as you men are, in different ways. But we do not have the equality, nor have we ever possessed it. We cannot own land in our name. We cannot go to a livery stable or a feed and seed emporium and purchase under the good credit of our signature and name. We have no power without what I hate the most. You asked me once what I hated the most of all the things that I encountered in running Braintree Plantation, and it is that damnable, that damnable second line. That second line. You remember Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, but he doesn't call himself that now. Oh no, he's changed the spelling of his name to Smythe, S-M-Y-T-H-E, Smythe. And he calls his feed and seed store the Smythe Feed and Seed Emporium. He supports the cause on the opposite side, and he has taken on great airs. And every week or every month when I go to Mr. Smythe's Feed and Seed Emporium, and I am about to leave, he has me sign Abigail Adams, Braintree Farm and Plantation. And even if I try to get away without it, he calls me back. Abigail Adams! Abigail Adams! Mrs. Adams! Yes, you know. The second line, Mrs. Adams. Second line? Mr. Smythe? Yes, Mrs. Adams. The second line you must sign for John Adams, Esquire. Oh, quite so. That, John Adams, that is what I hate and detest most of all in all my duties at Braintree. In everything that I do, it indeed galls me. But I sign. For without it, how can I feed our servants and slaves in the field? Our house servants, how can I feed my family? How can I buy fabric for the clothes for the children? How can I do anything without bowing to the power of the man in colonial America? We are not equal. We tread carefully in the shadows of the men. And the second thing that I must have, John, that I must have, it sounds ridiculous, but those little pins, those little straight pins, they come in a packet, all stuck in, and I have none. If you were a woman, you would know the impossibility of cutting a pattern, of adhering the pattern to the material, of keeping it intact while you cut it out without ruining pattern, fabric, garment to come. I have no pins. When we were courting, John, my father let us go to his library where we would discuss. We could not leave, we could not be together unchaperoned, but many an argument we had in that library where we posed facts against one another. We fell in love with one another for our intelligence, for our mental acuity. And one day in that library, you sang me a little song, and we agreed that whoever had written the words to this stanza had sold herself cheaply. For this woman said that she wanted a paper of pins. And we laughed. How ridiculous. And the man sang to her, and you sang to me, I'll give to you a paper of pins, if that's on what your love depends, if you will marry me, if you will marry me. Well, we are married, John. We are married. And it's no longer funny. I have to have those pins to attach the patterns to the fabric. Your children are growing like weeds. John Quincy's knickers are above his knees. Our children look pitiful, and when they have playtime, they run into the woods to play Indians and soldiers. And I fear every week that you will get a message in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the Continental Congress, and they will say, John Adams, wild, half-naked savages have attacked your home of Braintree. And those wild, naked savages are your children, the Adams children who will soon go bare. Indeed, I must have papers of pins. But John, Above all else, I go back to my first want, desire, wish. Remember the ladies in this new wonderful government to come. Remember that we are women, but we too have a brain. We too have things to share, and we need equality. And do not dare to let it be 6 weeks before I hear from you again.